The Crossroads gas station sat at the intersection of County Road 7 and County Road 12 in deep East Texas, surrounded by miles of pine forest so thick that the darkness between the trees looked solid, the kind of place where your cell signal died and the night felt heavier than it did anywhere else. And Tyler Briggs had worked there alone for 3 years, covering the overnight shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., a schedule that would have driven most people crazy but suited Tyler perfectly, because after he came back from 2 tours in Afghanistan with more ghosts in his head than he knew what to do with, the only thing that helped was solitude and routine and the simple rhythm of a job that didn't require him to think too much or talk to too many people. Most nights he saw maybe 5 or 6 customers, truckers getting coffee and stretching their legs, teenagers from the nearby town of Millbrook making snack runs and trying to buy beer with obviously fake IDs, the occasional insomniac who couldn't explain why they'd driven 45 minutes to a gas station in the middle of nowhere. And Tyler knew the regulars by name and habit, could predict almost to the minute when old Earl Dixon would pull up in his battered Ford pickup for his nightly Copenhagen and lottery tickets, the same routine every night at 1:30 a.m., the same small talk about weather and cattle prices and how the world was going to hell. The only human connection Tyler allowed himself, because Earl never asked questions about the scars on Tyler's hands or the way he sometimes flinched at sudden noises. The first night the man appeared was a Tuesday in late October, just past 2 a.m., when Tyler glanced up from his book, a paperback thriller he'd already read twice, and noticed headlights pulling up to pump 4, which was unusual because most people used pumps 1 or 2 closer to the door, but not remarkable enough to trigger any alarm. He watched through the fingerprint-smeared window as an older car, a brown Oldsmobile Cutlass, probably early 80s, the kind of car his grandfather used to drive, eased to a stop with a squeal of brakes that needed replacing, and the driver got out slowly, a middle-aged man with thinning brown hair and a red and black plaid shirt, his movements stiff and careful, like someone who'd been driving for too long. Tyler returned to his book as the man filled his tank, glancing up only when the door chimed and the customer walked in without responding to Tyler's automatic evening, moving directly to the cooler for a 6-pack of Lone Star beer, then to the counter for a pack of Marlboro Reds from the rack behind Tyler's head, then to the snack aisle for a bag of pork rinds, the kind with the picture of a smiling pig on the front that Tyler had always found vaguely disturbing, and finally to the counter, setting everything down without a word, waiting with flat eyes that caught the fluorescent light wrong, seeming to absorb it rather than reflect it. Tyler rang him up, $23.47, the kind of oddly specific total that stuck in your memory, and the man counted out exact change from a handful of coins and crumpled bills that he produced from his shirt pocket, not a wallet, the bills worn soft with age. And as Tyler handed over the receipt, the man looked at him directly for the first time, and Tyler felt something cold move through his chest, because he'd seen that look before, in the mirror on the worst nights, the look of someone who wasn't entirely there anymore. And the man said, "Hell of a night to be alone." Tyler managed a smile that felt like cracked plastic on his face. Always is out here. The man nodded once, gathered his items, and walked out to his car, and Tyler watched the Oldsmobile drive east on County Road 12, taillights disappearing into the darkness between the pines, and he told himself it was nothing, just another customer, just another night. But he checked the locks twice before settling back into his book.
The next night, Tyler was restocking the cigarette display at exactly 2 a.m. when he heard the familiar squeal of brakes that needed replacing, and he looked up to see the brown Oldsmobile pulling into the lot, positioning itself at pump 4 with mechanical precision, the same man getting out with the same stiff movements, filling his tank while staring at nothing, and Tyler's hands went still on the Marlboro cartons, because this was wrong. This was the same car, and the same man, and the same time, and the same pump. But people were creatures of habit, he told himself. People did the same things every day, and there was nothing strange about a regular customer, even if Tyler had never seen him before 2 nights ago. The man walked inside, went to the cooler for a 6-pack of Lone Star, picked up a pack of Marlboro Reds, grabbed a bag of pork rinds with the smiling pig, and set everything on the counter without speaking, his movements so identical to the previous night that Tyler felt like he was watching a recording, a loop playing on damaged film. And when Tyler rang him up and said 2347, the man counted out the same exact change from the same worn bills in his shirt pocket, and Tyler's throat went dry because he was almost certain those were the same bills, the same crumpled one with the tear in the corner, the same quarters worn smooth and old. The man looked at him with those flat, light-absorbing eyes and said, "Hell of a night to be alone." "Always is," Tyler whispered, and the man nodded once, gathered his items, and drove away east on County Road 12, and Tyler stood at the window watching until the taillights disappeared, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his teeth. The third night, he was ready. He'd set up his phone to record video, propping it on a shelf behind the counter with a clear view of the door. And at 1:55 a.m., he positioned himself at the window with a notebook, writing down every detail he could think of. The license plate was Texas plates, FJK 821, covered in dried mud. The man had a small scar on his left cheek he hadn't noticed before. The Lone Star was always from the 3rd row of the cooler, always the same 6-pack position. The man never blinked, not once during the entire transaction. At exactly 2 a.m., the headlights appeared on County Road 7, the Oldsmobile turned into the lot, and everything happened exactly as before. The same items, the same price, the same worn bills, the same exact words, in the same exact tone. Hell of a night to be alone. And when the car drove away east on County Road 12, Tyler grabbed his phone with trembling hands and watched the footage back twice, confirming that he wasn't losing his mind, that this was real, that something impossible was happening at Pump 4 every night at 2 a.m. The next morning, when old Earl Dixon came in at 1:30 a.m. for his Copenhagen and lottery tickets, Tyler showed him the footage, explained what had been happening, described the man and the car, and the ritual that repeated exactly the same way 3 nights running, and Earl watched the video in silence, his weathered face going pale beneath his trucker tan, and when it ended, Earl looked up at Tyler with an expression of pure, undisguised horror and asked quietly, "Son, where'd you get this?" Tyler told him he'd recorded it himself. Last night, the man had been coming in 3 nights in a row, and Earl shook his head slowly and said, "That ain't possible. That's Wade Hutchins. I've known him my whole life. Grew up 2 farms over from my daddy's place. Used to play baseball together when we were kids. Stood up at his wedding in '82. That car, that shirt, that's exactly how Wade looked back in 2008, right before the accident." Tyler felt the room tilt slightly, the fluorescent light suddenly too bright. What accident? Head-on collision, Earl said, his voice rough with old grief. "Right out there at the intersection, maybe 200 yards from where you're standing. Wade was coming home from a beer run. Some drunk kid ran the stop sign on County Road 7 and hit him doing 60, killed him instantly. They found a 6-pack of Lone Star in the wreck, a pack of Marlboros, a bag of pork rinds with the smiling pig, and set everything on the counter without speaking. Wade had just bought them from whoever was working here that night. That was 15 years ago, son. Wade Hutchins has been in the ground at Millbrook Cemetery for 15 years.
These accounts were compiled between interviews conducted in 2019 and 2023. All 3 subjects passed polygraph examinations and provided supporting documentation, including employment records, police reports, and, in 2 cases, video footage that independent analysts have been unable to explain or debunk. Whether their experiences can be explained by psychology, coincidence, elaborate hoax, or something else entirely remains an open question that each listener must answer for themselves. The night shift continues around the world. Right now, as you listen to this, thousands of people are working alone in empty hotels, quiet dispatch centers, and isolated gas stations, watching the darkness outside their windows and waiting for morning. Trusting that the routine will hold, that the rules will stay the same, that the next customer through the door will be just another traveler passing through. Most of the time, they're right. Most of the time, nothing unusual happens. Most of the time, the dead stay dead, and the past stays past, and time moves in only one direction. But sometimes, on certain nights, in certain places, when the hour is late and the silence is heavy, sometimes the rules bend, and something slips through, and a night shift worker looks up to see a face that shouldn't exist anymore, a car that should be rusted in a junkyard, a phone call from a line that was disconnected decades ago. And in those moments, there's no training that helps, no protocol to follow, no rational explanation that makes the fear go away. There's only the terrible, dawning realization that you've seen something you were never meant to see, and the question that will haunt you for the rest of your life: what happens when it sees you back?